Hey,
There you are.
there you are.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Oh man, I'm loving life right now. How's every sorry, I got a my last video I did, I had this massive like I don't even know if I can fix it. This massive glow behind me. It was like this angelic um
Oh,
glow behind me because there's a
that
window
board.
just right
Yeah.
over here, and it just like about right. Well, I can't really show you. So about right here
Yeah.
on this whole thing was just like this, like the sun was just right there, and so like I was fine. You could see me,
Right, right,
whatnot.
right.
So all right, this is funny stuff. So anyway, this records as soon as we get on. So I figured
Okay.
talk for a little bit,
Absolutely.
and we'll go from there. So once again, this is another JAG National Trauma video in which we kind of talk about different aspects of trauma and the brain and mental health, especially right now as we deal with the COVID-19 virus and just the way that has thrown people for a loop. And so for the last 2 weeks, we've talked a little bit about front of the brain, back of the brain, conversations and survival mode and different things like that. We've talked about how to work with kids right now during this time with regulating them first and then relating to them and then trying to reason with them and try to do some of the academic stuff, but there's certain steps that have to happen first with the regulating of their emotions and their anxieties and different stuff. And so today I have Johnny Matlock from Hays, Kansas, who spent, and I'm going to let him give his resume a little bit, spent years upon years as a music instructor. I believe you were at Bonner Springs at one time and
That's right.
Hays.
Yes.
And I remember all this because I am the one who hired Johnny to JAG Kansas out in Hays, Kansas. I was his regional director last year. And so Johnny is one of my favorite people. He's just interesting. He's a phenomenal specialist here in Kansas. And so, Johnny, give us a little bit of your background as we talk today, a little bit about music and how that works with the brain and whatnot. But give us some of your background.
Yeah, sure, sure. Well, yeah, I was a choral educator for 30 years, 30
Yeah.
years. And I started in Bonner Springs High School, taught there for 10 years, and met my wife there. And then that took us out to Hayes, where she's from a town close by here. And so I've been the choral director at Hayes High, sometimes at the middle school here as well, for 30 years. So yeah, been doing it a long time, and
Yeah.
then started doing this. So
Right. That's awesome. And when I first interviewed Johnny, I was sitting there and I was listening to you as I asked you questions and whatnot, and I was kind of going, man, that's some really good answers. That's this, that, and the other. And then I got to thinking, but is it going to be the same with music? And then I got to thinking about that music class can sometimes be a little chaotic because you got this group of sopranos doing their own thing over here, and
right,
this group, and I'm working with this
right.
group right now, and I expect this group to do their own thing. And I was like, wow, that sounds exactly like a JAG class. He's going to be
like a
phenomenal.
JAG-K classroom. Yeah, I think
Right.
musicals especially are that way.
Oh yeah.
I've always felt like it's just chaotic. You got the choreography going on and the
Right.
staging, and then they're learning the music, and you got all these elements. And they finally come together.
And come together,
And
right?
so
It's
yeah,
just a beautiful
yeah.
thing. So that was great, and so we have been blessed here in Kansas to have you as our a specialist for us. But so as we talk specifically about music and we work into your area of expertise, Johnny is also on our JAG Kansas Trauma Team, a newly minted thing, like within the
Right.
last month to 6 weeks or
Yes.
so that we as we start to look at what we're going to do for state training this year and a
Hmm.
few things like that. But so I'm excited he'll be working with me again, and so when we talk music, give us your best pitch for just the importance of music, not only in education, but just in each of our
Right,
lives.
right. Yeah. Well, I want to say something here before I forget
Go
it,
for
because
it.
how you introduced this with trauma informed care. Um, I think that music can be something that really does give us some clarity during times like we're in right now. And, uh, we talk about trauma informed care. We talk about um, how students can be triggered by certain things, right? Triggers. And I
Yep.
think music can be a trigger as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think it can help us to get to the place that we want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if we're really thinking about that, I think about uh, how music sometimes can be a trigger. Um, you hear music. Maybe Brad, you play a favorite song or something, and
Mm-hmm.
or just a song, and it makes you feel something. It
Mm-hmm.
makes you feel something. So later, I wanna feel that same way again. So what do? I play that song. I play it again, and it triggers those same feelings. Does
Mm-hmm.
that make
Yeah.
sense?
Oh, for
Yeah. So I
sure.
think music can really be a positive trigger, as well as it can be a negative one as well,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's kind of like um, there used to be this saying that we had that you are what you eat. You are what
Sure.
you read. Well, I think you're also sometimes you are what you listen to
Mm-hmm.
as well. And this is a thought that's been around for many centuries. Aristotle, he thought that if you listen to certain types of music with certain types of passions, and he was talking about certain types of emotions,
Mm-hmm.
that would shape your character to be in that certain way.
Yeah.
And so I think music is very powerful, and I think one of the, I guess what I've been thinking about when you asked to do this, I thought, I just think sometimes we need to be more intentional about what music we listen to,
Mm-hmm.
and thinking that through, choosing music that's going to improve our well-being.
Sure.
And I'm not sure sometimes that we think about that, especially in this digital age where, man, I can be listening to music just nonstop. I'm
Yeah.
saying, all sorts of different things. We're exposed to a lot more music than ever before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think you're onto something. I think this is something that can really be helpful right now. I've been talking to my um, I'll always be doing music. I guess I do a Zoom with my church choir on Wednesday nights, and
There you go.
and because of the connection we have, and then my studio students,
Mm-hmm.
telling them I get to take piano breaks or to take a voice break, during
Mm-hmm.
the day, kind of a creative break, because it's good for them.
Yes.
It's good for their brain. It's good for that. So there's this aspect of music as being a music maker, how it helps us. And then we need to be more intentional, I think, about being a music consumer. Does that make
Sure.
sense? I don't know if
Yeah.
that's the
No.
pitch that you were
No, for
after. I
sure.
thought there's this uh, um, uh, Jimi Hendrix
Yes.
has this quote. He said, you can hypnotize people with music.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get them at their weakest point, you can preach into their subconscious whatever you want to say.
Yep.
And he was saying, he's saying that, that a quick way to change someone's mood is to add music to the mix.
Sure.
And I'm sure specialists that you've experienced that as well. When
Yes.
students come into my classroom, I'm always playing. I have music going,
Yep.
and sometimes it's classical, sometimes it's jazz, sometimes it's just the local radio station. But
Mm-hmm.
it's just amazing to me how after a little bit of time, what I'm saying, how that can kind of um, change things
Yes.
and change the mood.
Yeah. And I mean, that's phenomenal. I mean, that's exactly, um, I knew we were going to get something, and we can get some Jimi Hendrix quotes in here, and what Aristotle. I mean, two phenomenal philosophers, if you think about it, both of them in their own way. And I think about myself. I'm a big music guy. Love music. All kinds of music. Anything from I love. Um, listening to classical music, not sometimes the big robust classical music, even though I like some of that too, but I like kind of the quieter stuff that kind of is just going on behind me as I work on stuff. But then I love worship music. I love country music. I love rock. I love today's pop. You know, I mean, I just love music. I'm a music connoisseur. And I got to thinking about when you said the hypnotized part. One of the things that happens with me is I'll get to working and I'll just put on YouTube or something and I'll get in a genre, and it, you know how YouTube now will give you a mixtape
Right.
based off the things that you kind of listen to a lot,
Right.
right? And I'll just have stuff on there. And there's times where if that music that's playing is really in line with kind of where I'm at emotionally or mentally or whatever, man, I can get a ton done
Mm-hmm.
and not even realize the music's on, and kind of be done and feel light and airy
Mm-hmm.
and just like awesome. But there's sometimes when I'm kind of stressed with what I'm working on, and that music that's on is not something that I really want to hear at that time, and it kind of annoys me,
Sure.
actually. You know, where I'll
Sure.
be like,
Right.
I don't want to
Right.
listen to country music right
Right.
now.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think music and that's what I'm saying about being more intentional about what we
Yes.
listen to. So Brad, if you knew that this particular song or this particular genre is
Hmm.
something that helps you focus, if you'd start thinking about that, then
Yep.
you could use that music at certain times, or there's certain types of music maybe that you can relax to, and it puts you
Right.
into just a relaxed state. And I think can be different for everyone.
Sure.
I mean, different people. And I think sometimes we need to maybe even help our students become a noticer of what do you listen to?
Right.
What's your
Junk in,
current
junk out.
listening
Junk in,
habits?
junk out. Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And try to find some anchor songs, some anchor genres that they
Hmm.
can go to, because
Yep.
music can help you focus. It can be distracting, like you said.
Yep.
Certain times it's certain music. It can motivate. It can relax.
Right.
It can evoke memories. Oh my gosh, how many times have you listened to a song?
Oh man.
I
Oh
hear
man.
a Boston, more than a feeling or something, and man,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about my high school friends. I'm
Yeah.
back there in Arkansas, and
Oh
it
man.
just triggers up those memories. It's so cool.
Right. I tell you, I'm that way with if I don't want to get myself in trouble in case my mom or dad gets on here, but if I hear a Beastie Boys song,
yeah,
I'm immediately in some of my where we used to party at in
right,
high
right,
school
right,
with everybody doing the Beastie Boys songs and stuff,
right,
and I'm always
right.
like, that was a happy time.
Yes,
Like that
yes,
was fun
yeah, yeah.
and stupid. We did some really dumb stuff, but we
Yeah,
all lived, and but it was fun. And
right.
and immediately when it comes on, I'm 17,
Yeah,
18,
yeah.
19,
Uh-huh.
20,
Yeah.
so it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah,
Crazy.
yeah. Music connects to our emotions. I mean, and you see someone listening to music, and I've seen some pictures of what's going on in their brains,
Yeah.
their bodies. I mean, it's just lighting. It's lighting up. It's uh, it's making an impact. I'm saying an impression.
Yes.
It's a very powerful tool, and I think we just need to think about it more in terms of being intentional.
Right.
All the what research right now on neuroplasticity and things
Yes.
like that is very
Yeah.
interesting when it comes to music and how our brains develop and learn new things, right?
Hmm.
And how can be taught new things. And I've loved the research about uh, uh, kids and music, and how important it is for them to have music in their lives, especially early in their lives, because it's a little bit if you don't use it, you lose it kind of thing. So say
Sure.
you've been given a gift of music and you don't start using it or don't start getting stimulated in that way by um, age 12, 13, or 14 or whatever,
Right.
then sometimes it becomes you begin to lose it. You begin to lose those capabilities, those gifts that you
Sure.
have.
Sure.
um, yeah.
Well, and the interesting thing when you bring up neuroplasticity, and I was, I'm not an expert in that regard, but I was kind of hoping you had some background in that, and if you don't have enough to really dive into it, that's fine too, because I don't either, but I understand neuroplasticity for sure,
Hmm.
and that's the belief that well, let me back up. At one point, people thought Johnny is the way he is.
Right.
He was born
Right.
this way. He will always be this way. He will
Hmm.
never be able to change
Right.
except in micro ways from this, whatever this big ball of genetics is. This is Johnny Matlock, and he will never change.
Hmm.
We are now finding that this big ball of Johnny Matlock, yes, is very much Johnny Matlock in that, eye color, skin color, hair color, height, weight, a bunch of different things like that. But when it comes to the actual brain and how we start to function through life and how we deal with anxiety and how we learn and whatnot, that the brain is actually moldable.
Right.
And that's where
Right.
this neuroplasticity comes
Right.
from, that it can actually, the synapses will fire, and if they start to connect, then you learn new things, and
Hmm.
there's certain ways, and that there was some thought that once you go through certain traumas, you're just always going to be triggered by those traumas, and you're just
Right.
up a creek. You just got to learn the best way you can to deal with it. And so we're starting to find out that no, you can actually rewire your brain.
Hmm.
In fact, Rebecca Pankratz Lewis, I'm hoping to have her on one of these. She works for ESDAC in Hutchinson, and one of the things she talks about is the the great thing about people who have dealt with trauma and heavy anxiety and whatnot is once they learn how to deal and start to have that brain in a neuroplasticity way start to
Right.
rewire and whatnot, now you got a
Right.
super brain. So not only
Right.
have you lived
Right.
through it, and now you have empathy and whatnot. And so
Mhm.
I say all that to explain what neuroplasticity is, basically, in
Right. Right.
10,000 words or less.
Right. And music can play a role in reshaping those things,
Yes.
if we're
Yes.
intentional about it and thinking about where we want to get, where we want to be,
Right.
and who we want to
And
be.
yeah, and what I have read, and maybe you know more about this, is as you deal with, well, let's the two different ways. So one thing, let's say I want to learn something new. Okay, so as I'm trying to learn something new, and whether that's I'm reading something about it to gain knowledge, or I am um, watching something to gain knowledge or whatever, it has been scientifically proven that if there's music going on in the background, that
Hmm.
the more things that are the more
Sure.
senses, so to speak,
Right. The census. Yeah.
that are firing at the same
Hmm.
time. So not only am I
Makes it
watching
more
and
sticky. Makes it more
yeah, and
sticky.
it makes it stick. And so you have more of those synapses that
Right.
start to mold to each other and whatnot. And so there's that aspect of it.
Right. Absolutely.
From a trauma standpoint or a therapy standpoint or whatever, and it's not just music, because sometimes it can also be sounds, but um um
Absolutely.
yeah, like
Absolutely.
waterfalls and
Yes.
nature sounds
That's
especially
right.
and whatnot.
Sounds trigger all sorts of emotions in us. I
Yeah.
was just talking to someone not too long ago, and the slamming of a door.
Oh.
It was very frightening and
Yeah.
just scary to this person, because in childhood, dad was pretty. They knew when they heard that slam of the door, this was not a good. This was
Yes.
not a good thing.
Yeah.
And so there can be sounds that trigger good feelings,
Sure.
and sounds that trigger not so good.
Right.
And yes.
Yeah, and it's oh my goodness, it's as you start to understand that. And so let's move this back into the classroom now.
Okay. Mhm.
Okay, you said that you like to have music as people walk in, or as the students walk in. Do you notice people? Let's say I'm one of your students. I walk in and I'm kind of elevated about whatever happened in the last class or just what happened last night
Mhm.
at home,
Mhm.
whatever it was. I come walking into the classroom and I'm kind of like, not necessarily going off and freaking out. I'm not
Right.
completely dysregulated, but I'm been out of shape a little bit. And I
Mhm.
walk into your class, I hear a little Bach or a little Mozart or whatever as I'm
Mm-hmm.
walking in, and I'm kind of mad. But after about what, 4 or 5 minutes, you know,
Mm-hmm.
we're kind of
Mm-hmm.
talking, keeping it light. Do you start to see a change come over
Yeah,
kids?
yeah. Sometimes,
Yeah,
yes. I think that can happen. And sometimes, if I've had a students that were very elevated, like you say, when they're coming through the door, I'll just tell them to go to a corner and put on their headphones and play some music,
yeah,
because I think too that music has to be. Um, um, Again, I don't think it's. I think my genre of music may not do
sure,
diddly squat for you, Brad. You know
sure,
what I'm
sure.
saying? You know,
Yeah,
and I think I don't know what they listen to, but after a while, I really can see that it does begin to make a difference. They
right,
begin to de-escalate. They begin to become in a state where they're more regulated,
right.
right? Like we talk about being regulated. So absolutely, I think it's just very powerful. But that's what I'm saying about. I just think sometimes that we need to, and I haven't done it, but you talking about this, it's made me think. I
Right.
want to, if help students process this, to
Mm-hmm.
become a noticer of what they're listening to, and a noticer of how it makes them feel
Mm-hmm.
in their bodies, because music is a whole body experience.
Yes,
It's
it
not
is.
just it's not just here. Music is a whole body experience, and if we could help students to that they would notice that, wow, when I'm listening to this song or I'm listening to this genre, that I feel this way. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
then we've made some connections there. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
We've
for
made some
sure.
connections. And so there's a really good book that's called Tune In. It's by
Okay.
Jennifer Buchanan. It was a 2012 book. And her whole thing is about being more intentional with our listening, but she's a music therapist
Okay.
and talking about how we can use those sort of things. And she calls these things anchors, like finding out what is that song? What's that first thing in the morning song for you?
Mm-hmm.
What's the get ready for school song for you?
Mm-hmm.
What's a study song, for you,
Right.
that would help you focus. I think it was so good you mentioned that sometimes certain stuff it's distracting.
Oh yeah.
That's the way I am. I can't listen to classical music and study because I'm sitting there and I'm trying to analyze. I'm thinking. I'm thinking too
Right.
much. I've got to have something that I can process much
Right.
easier, that sort of thing.
Right.
But what kind of song is it that after a stressful day, or you're angry and it brings you back? You see what I'm saying? I think we need
Yeah.
to help kids find their she called it um, create a positive auditory diet.
Sure. Sure. That's
Yep,
awesome.
yep.
And I think
I
that's
like
what we're
that.
going to take from this, because I got to think as you were talking about this. I mean, and I hope we take a lot from this, but as you were talking, I was sitting there thinking, wow, that would be amazing for kids to really, like you said, be in tune
Yeah.
with what's
Yes.
coming in, and
Yes.
especially not only just what's coming in, but when it's coming in.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Because I
Right.
I got to thinking about two things I thought about as we were talking. Number one, in regards to that specifically, I have certain types of music I listen to when I wake up. I have music that I
Sure.
listen to that's
Yep.
light and fun and let's get
Right.
after it today and whatnot. Um, as the day goes on, I start to listen to more stuff that's a little more chill as I'm just working through the day and whatnot. But one thing that I used to do, and I was always and I don't know why I was like this. I just think I was in tune maybe with it. But when I coached basketball, I legitimately thought one of the best things was to have the right music
Oh,
before the
I
game,
agree.
you know?
I agree.
And
Well,
um
well,
and so
Brad,
I would do that
you see
stuff.
the professionals doing that, don't
Yeah.
you? They've got
Yeah.
their headphones out there on the
Yep.
football field. What are they
Yep.
doing?
Yep.
Man, they're focusing. They're getting whatever it is that works for them,
Sure.
in that moment. And some people it's quiet. You'll see some over to themselves and it's just
Right.
breathing and quiet. So I bet that music is just really relaxing. They're just gathering their
And
thoughts.
they're just
But
chilling
some
out.
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, I
And
used to do
why
that all
shouldn't
the
we be
time.
more intentional with all of that and
Sure.
everything that we do in our lives? And it's
Exactly.
not to say that sometimes sometimes the music is background. I understand that, but we're talking about moving beyond sometimes just what we put in the background just for some noise. We're talking about
Right.
being intentional with it in
Right.
terms of that it could help us improve ourselves or help improve whatever it is that I'm doing.
Yes. Yes. And I think so. Tell me what that was called again. The
It's called
auditory diet.
oh, that's good. The positive create a positive auditory diet, I
There you
think is
go.
what she says.
Positive
And I
pad.
thought that's so cool.
We'll call it pad.
Yeah, there you go. There you
Positive
go.
auditory diet.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. You know,
Yeah.
I and one thing I enjoyed what you said also that you know that different people are going to be motivated by different types of music. Now, I think there are some types of music that sometimes have gotten a bad rap, but at the same time, they also sometimes have some of the worst lyrics, so
I
to
agree.
speak,
I
that what
agree.
you're listening to and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But one of those types of music that, I mean, if there's a genre that I absolutely just, it's not me, is what I'll say, is that screamo stuff, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
where they, I
Yeah.
mean, I am like, are they even saying anything? You know, and, but,
Right.
but
Right.
what I
Right.
heard, I have a friend, more of an acquaintance. I mean, we knew each other when I used to work up in South Dakota, and there was a lady that a little bit older than me that passed away actually from the coronavirus, and it was super, like, called 911 and within 12 hours was gone, you know.
Oh, wow.
And she is related to this guy's dad, who is also currently uh, in ICU with the coronavirus, right? And they were all together at the end of February, beginning of March, before anyone knew anything about this, at a wedding. And so there's like quite a few family members who are all sick with this right now. And it's really heartbreaking and whatnot. But this guy on Facebook is kind of giving updates about his dad and whatnot. And one of the things he said was, during this time, I am drawing strength from this song. And so he lists the song and he lists the words. And so I was kind of like, oh, wow, you know, I'm going to listen to that song. That piques my interest. And I'm not kidding you. I put it on and it's this screamo stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
how in the world can you possibly draw anything? Like, I don't even know what's
Right.
being said. But
Right.
the power of the words, that even though it was being screamed, the power of the words. And so I took a step back. I'm like, okay, I don't particularly care for this type of music. However, I'm going to listen to it again. And I really want to try and hear these words. And so I listened to it again, and I don't remember the exact words right now, but it was about, I'm going to get back up. I am going to attack this. I am going to. And you know what? When you start to think about that, you know, I remember when I coached and I was fired up about something and I really wanted to get my point across. I didn't go, you know, guys, let's just really focus. No, I was like,
Right.
we're going to do
Yeah.
this and we're going to get after
Yeah.
this. And in some ways, listening to that type of music, and it was a very wholesome message.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of
Emotionally,
like,
emotionally,
yeah,
it connected with him, you know, too. I mean, it was
yeah.
just like,
And I
yeah.
got done listening to it when I went in with more of a little bit of an open mind with like, yes, like I'm fired up now. I'm going to attack this day to day too, you know? Now, do I want to go listen to that music? Nah, that's still not my thing.
Right.
But it was really interesting. I just found it fascinating. Well, you know, in my background, I find people fascinating anyway. And so it was just like, wow, for everyone's different as to what they're doing. And so I thought that was a good point that you made, that, you know, not, you know, this isn't a one size fits all. Hey, if you want to calm down, you need to listen to classical jazz. If you want to get fired up, you need to listen to this. If you want to be,
there's no playlist for everybody.
right.
And that's
where this
important
pad
to know.
could come into play.
Yeah.
Positive auditory diet.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
it's a
gotta
very
keep
good.
on.
It's a very good book. In fact, I would say probably most of the things I've said today probably come from that book somewhere.
That's awesome.
You know what I'm saying? You know, I
Yeah.
read things and it's there. But yes, Tune In by Jennifer Buchanan. It's Very
Tune
good
In
book.
by Jennifer Buchanan. All right, cool. Well, I tell you what, I really feel like, when we put this stuff up on Jag Genius and stuff, and we start to get comments and stuff, to be honest with you, I think when it comes to music, I think we're going to get some comments. Like, I think people are going to go like, oh, I love to listen to this. I love to listen to that. And so that's one thing I want to say right now is for those who end up watching this at a later time, please comment on, the type of things you've seen happen in your class, the type of music for you personally or whatever. And let's start to kind of look at this and become more aware of the music that's around us and whatnot. Right. I know when we did the self-care webinar way back in the beginning of January, I think it was the first JAG-Cares trauma webinar we did was on self-care. And a lot of the comments after that were, when it came to self-care, their self-care was music. Like, I would say 75% of them. Yeah. It was either music or watching TV shows. One of those two things.
And Brad, sometimes when I've talked with students, sometimes when they, they'll come talk to you, maybe they're elevated, maybe they're depressed on the opposite end of that, and you start processing with that, and sometimes, I'll ask, well, what kind of music have you been listening to?
Sure.
Because sometimes I do that too. I'm in a low mood. I just want to waller there for a while, so I listen to this song and I can just, the tears, whatever, you know what I'm saying? But can you could we be telling kids, giving them tools to help them to say, okay, how are you going to get out of that? Music can be one of those things that's going to can get you to where you want to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
and I think now with our shelter in place, stay at home sort of things, that we need to be aware of that, I think, with our kids, and talking to them sometimes about how to stay in a positive mindset.
Frame of mind.
Right. And to be how are you going to get motivated to do online school? Well, some kids that that may fit them just fine.
Exactly.
Me, I go up to the high school and it's like a ghost building, and I just can't stand it because I need that relationships. I miss those kids.
Yep.
But I think music can be something that we could be helpful to them right now. Speaks right now.
Unbelievable. Well, I tell you what, I think we'll probably call an end to this one for right now, but unless there's more for you, there's no set time frame. So we can keep talking forever if you want.
I've enjoyed it very much. I love it talking about my craft.
Right. And I think there'll be more conversations actually in the future. And in fact, one thing I would love to see you do, and once again, I'm not your regional director, so I can't tell you what to do, but as a trauma person, as the trauma director for Kansas, I would love for you to work on some type of curriculum or a set of PBLs to do that pad,
to work
that
through
positive.
These.
Yeah. Man, if you could,
I'd be kind of excited about doing that. And I think it could be very positive. I agree.
Right. I think, certainly don't do stuff over and above what you already need to do, but, you have a passion for music. Obviously you have an expertise in the area of music. You did it, like you said, for 30 years. I don't know who else could probably come up with a better PBL, to be honest with you, about this. And it would be really interesting to see how that would shape up, and maybe it's something we get back on again at some point, and we allow you, and by we, I allow you to just say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. And we teach people how to look at this and whatnot. I think that could be unbelievable, Johnny. So, well, I always do this with every podcast. I give the expert, which is you. It's certainly not me. I'm just the guy that likes to talk a lot. I give the expert the opportunity to what do you want us to know? We walk away from here. What do you want us to know? Last good plug.
my last good plug is I just think we need to be more intentional about the music we listen to, and realizing the power that it has to change our moods and to mold us
Yes.
in what we'd like to be.
Sure.
And so, yeah.
Oh man, I got a couple emails right there at the end. Uh, thank you so much, Johnny.
Well,
Seriously. And once again,
thanks
this
for
is,
doing this. I think it's a great idea.
yeah. Once again, this is Johnny Matlock. He's with Hayes High School here in Kansas, part of JAG, Kansas, and really just a remarkable human being. Great heart for the kids, and you know, I've enjoyed getting to know you over the last 2 years,
And
and
you as well.
and it's phenomenal. I'm super excited. You're going to be a part of the JAG Kansas Trauma Team, and I look forward to talking to him in the future. So everyone who watches this, seriously, use the reply to the comments section and just kind of
conversation continues.
yeah, let the conversation go,
Mm-hmm.
and Johnny can jump on there too. If you got specific questions, I mean, I'm telling you, when it comes to music, this guy knows what he's talking about. Even some of you, if there's music educators out there that want to just ask him how to do anything in the world of choral or whatever, man, reach out to this guy. He's the best. So, all right, Johnny, I really appreciate your time, and we'll look forward to talking in the future.
You bet. Thank you, Brad.
All right. See you, Johnny.
Uh-huh.